All right, so good morning and welcome, Jody. It's lovely to see you. It's a bit later in New Zealand than it is here, but it's very good to have you here. Now, this morning's talk, we're going to chat about the fundamentals of dressage. So what the heck does that mean? Let's open with that.
Right, yeah, that's cool. I think dressage as a sport is a little bit maybe different to dressage just as a training. Like, that is what the word dressage means. It means training. It's from the old French of to dress, or to train the horse. And you can look at it sort of as a concept, or you can look at it as a sport. And then as a sport, you can look at it from a real kind of beginner's aspect, or from the top level of the sport, and all of those things. And then including classical dressage in that, you've actually got very different pockets of what dressage actually is. So yeah, it kind of depends what slant you want to put on it. But if you just think of dressage as training, it is just the training of a horse. And generally we think of dressage as being the training of the horse where you're not jumping anything. But then to complicate that, we have a pre-Caprilli test where you actually jump things in your dressage test. But really, I like the FEI definition of dressage. There was a bit of an outcry lately because the FEI have taken the object and general principles out of the rules. And of course, a lot of people are thinking, gosh, that's terrible. But they've actually put it kind of in an annex. So it's still there, but isn't in the rule book as such. And what they talk about with the FEI, is the object of dressage is the development of the horse into a happy athlete through harmonious education. As a result, it makes the horse calm, supple, loose and flexible, but also confident and attentive and keen, thus achieving perfect understanding with the athlete. And these qualities are demonstrated by the freedom and regularity of the paces, the harmony, lightness, and ease of the movements, the lightness of the forehand and engagement of the hindquarters, which should come from lively impulsion of the horse, and the acceptance of the bit with submissiveness, or this concept we call throughness, without any tension or resistance. So those qualities that are demonstrated are actually what's written at the bottom of the dressage test. They're what we call the coefficients, and they're with double marks. So I think we talked about that, Kate, did we not, as part of the course when we were at the Equestrian Centre, and I explained that when you're doing your 20-metre circle, for instance, in your prelim level test, the judge isn't just looking for a round circle. They are looking for the paces of the horse, the willingness to go forward, the activity, the submission, all of those. That's what you're being judged on during your circle. And I think a few people struggle with that concept because they're like, my horse is losing marks all the time for being on the forehand. It should only be marked for being on the forehand at the very bottom of the test where it mentions it. And I'm like, well, no, you still need a set of ideals that you're being judged on in all of the movements. And that's very much the same for the sport of working equitation as well. You're still being judged not just on how well you can do the slalom, for instance, but on how balanced the horse is, its willingness to go forward, its acceptance of the bridle. All of those things are what's in the judge's eye or in the judge's mind as they're watching you. And so I think that's really important for people starting in the sport to realize it is about your horse's posture. It is about it lifting its forehand, engaging the correct muscles and moving forward. That is the aim, the goal of the whole thing.
Yeah, okay. That's really interesting. So what about if we're talking about sort of at this level, how important is a thorough understanding and ability to get your horse, with the throughness, you mentioned throughness and elevation of the forehand and all of these things. Do I need to have all of that in a package before I go into my prelim test?
Sadly, I've ridden at Grand Prix for many years, and no one is scoring a perfect 10. We're all going for those things. You never quite get them. We often have a joke between Grand Prix riders, the hardest part of the test is getting your horse on the bit, and on the bit means all of those things. So it is a constant, you're never there. That's part of the the painfulness and the duality of dressage, is that you're always on a journey to make the horse more of all of those things. And certainly at a beginning level, you don't, you won't have all of those things. If you had all of those things, you wouldn't be at a beginning level. So then we kind of break it down further. And that's really what the training scale helps us with, to think, right, what is the most important of all of those wonderful things that we need? And so then we go on to talk about the training scale, which the typical training scale we use for dressage starts at rhythm. So that would be the thing I would be concentrating on the most at the starting level. You're not going to have throughness. You're not going to have, an amazing uphill impulsion, but you still want the horse to be soft in the mouth and accepting the bit and all of those things. So it's this
Jody,
kind of paradox.
Jody, are we talking then about Andrew McLean's, the Equitation Science International training scale now? Does that start with rhythm?
No, so that's really interesting. If we go on to look at the training scale, I think most of the listeners here today will have heard of the German training scale, as it's called. And I'm just going to pull one up here on my screen. And it's actually a very interesting thing. Now, I'm not sure there if I can share that screen. Is that an easy thing for me to do?
Try and share it, Jody, and I'll see if it comes up with
Okay, I'm going to give that a go down here somewhere. More. Where do I find the share screen? Sorry. Oh, there, I've got it. Okay.
Yeah, and then you have to choose the window you're sharing and then press the blue button. But oh my goodness.
Are we going?
Yeah, we're going. We're so going. Good. Okay.
Right. Okay, so I just did a quick Google here for the German training scale, and you have lots of these generally drawn in a triangle like this, with rhythm at the bottom, which is the energy and tempo of the horse. So it's about the horse maintaining a stride length and speed. So your horse isn't like speeding up, then slowing down, losing rhythm. And rhythm's really important because with rhythm comes relaxation. So the same as humans, it helps the horse to regulate. If the hooves are, the legs are moving at the same speed throughout the movements, there's nothing erratic happening. That has a kind of calming influence for the horse. So it starts with rhythm and then goes to relaxation, and it says in brackets there elasticity and suppleness, and then connection, where you look at the horse accepting the bit, and then up to impulsion, like adding some more energy and life to the whole thing.
Oh, can you explain, sorry to interrupt you, can you just explain impulsion again? Somebody, I was at an event the other day, and Brett Parbury, I think, said impulsion is the amount of energy that the foot leaves the floor with. Yeah,
you can look at it like that. Again, impulsion doesn't mean speed. It's more an internal, it's one of those things. You're going to have 100 people preach to you a slightly different thing. But when a horse is moving with impulsion, it's moving with power. It doesn't mean it's running flat across the ground. It means it's, thrusting off the ground, has power with it, but this contained kind of energy is the impulsive power forward. And then you move on to straightness, and at the top, collection. So each of these things on its own, we could have a chat about. You really can extrapolate the whole thing. But a little bit the trouble with the German training scale, and it is the one you're going to hear about time and time again, like just about every dressage trainer in the world is like, it's all about this training scale. The trouble with it is that the German training scale, I think, was from 1915, I think the year was when it was first mooted in Germany. And it was from the cavalry. They wrote a book that mentioned this training scale. but the horses coming into the cavalry were already broken in, going under saddle. They weren't an ex-race horse that had been sitting in the paddock for 5 years and has a terrible mouth and a twisted head. They weren't, a kid's pony that had learned a few tricky little habits. They weren't your homebred warm blood horse that you've kind of half broken in yourself and have no control over. They were horses that were already trained, kind of ready to go. They were at what their starting point is and what our starting point is are often very, very different things. So therefore, starting with rhythm can be a bit problematic, because it's like, how the heck do I get rhythm? Like, okay, I clearly don't have it. So what lies beneath rhythm? And then when I'll have a chat afterwards about Andrew McLean's training scale, which to me is it's a way to then reach into these things, if you know what I mean. So that one of the issues we have with this training, the German training scale, is that it starts at rhythm. And what if I have a horse that's rearing up and running backwards and won't go into its corners and is getting tense and it spooks all the time, or it won't halt when I ask it to? Where am I on the training scale? I'm off the training scale. I'm not even near the start.
So could you pull Andrew's up for us?
Yeah, I will do that in a second. But the thing with this training scale is, it's not, I don't want people to look at it and think that it's like a linear thing where you need rhythm, and then after rhythm you'll get relaxation, then after that you can try for connection. For instance, straightness is near the top. And for me, if you don't have a straight horse, you can't have a relaxed horse, and you can't even have a horse in true rhythm. So to be just thinking I need to work on rhythm when you have a very crooked horse is not going to be helpful. So when you have a discussion with dressage people about this, and a lot of people have got it stuck in their mind that it's definitely you need one before the other, there'll be plenty of us arguing that no, it's not really like that. It's just a group of ideals. Definitely rhythm is kind of one of your starting points, rhythm and relaxation. We don't look for them at the end, for them at the start, but you need some of the others, and not collection, but you need the straightness, some impulsion, and the connection at some stage in there to start creating things.
But if we rewrote that scale to more of a Venn diagram, so we had big circles with the collection right in the middle covering all of it, then that might be a better way of viewing it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. If you had rhythm as kind of the overarching thing, and then you're adding to it, but all of these play a part in rhythm and in relaxation. And that rhythm and relaxation really is a big part of the sport. When you're looking for that happy athlete, when you're looking for a horse that can move through the dressage tests and the dressage levels, piece by piece, you're wanting the horse to look, it should look easy.
All right, I'm just mindful of time, so I'm just moving you along a little.
Okay. So the training scale that I subscribe to a little bit more than this one, although this one's always in the back of my head. It's definitely all very useful information, but it's one that was designed from Andrew McLean, and it starts off with basic attempts. So it's when you're breaking in a horse, or you need to retrain your horse, you're trying to get to rhythm. So it is when I squeeze with my legs, does the horse actually attempt to step forward, for instance, or when I steady on the reins, does the horse slow his legs? So we have basic attempt, and then it moves on to obedience, which means the horse does it immediately from a light signal. And then after obedience, you'll find that you have rhythm, and rhythm says that the horse will keep doing what it is you want it to do until told otherwise. So we have these few fundamentals that start. So if you have a horse that stands in the corner and is rearing up, well, you may not have basic attempt for your go aid or your stop aid or your turn aid that is causing that behavior to happen. So I like to pare it back before this German training scale and make sure my horses understand the real basics of the aids before we start kind of creating that dressage horse.
Hey, Jody, you're still sharing your screen. Could you just put into your search bar that Andrew's scale so we can have a look at it?
Yeah, I think I have it on my little home screen here as a PDF. I think we had it somewhere from Sophie.
I think it should come up. If you just
yeah, maybe I'll just Google it. It might be easiest. It's always hard.
It's down a bit lower. No, that's okay. Yeah,
I know. I sent it through to you. Sorry, and I did mean to have that ready this morning. We didn't quite get there. No, I think I'm going to struggle pulling it up. But we can send that out to people.
Sure.
Might be the best thing. So yeah, Andrew's training scale starts at basic attempt, moves on to obedience, and then rhythm. And after rhythm, we look at line control. So that's all to do with the line control, to do with straightness and the horse holding its line. And then from there, so basically the horse holds rhythm, holds the line, and then we look at the contact or the posture of the horse. And then we have a little tricky thing called proof, which means anywhere, anytime, the horse will still respond to said signals. And that is always a tricky one.
I love that, because when we were making the course, we had the students, because the course consists of 4 students, a couple of which are here, and they all worked for 4 days on this course. They rode the test first, and we worked at Jody's place for 3 days, and then we went to a venue, and that was proof, wasn't it? That day was
proof that the wheels can fall off. Yeah,
it's really good to do it like that. And the other thing I liked about the course making it was that we're looking at horses of that level. So it was prep. They were riding prep and prelim tests, and that's a sort of level we were looking at, which means that if you're watching the course, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing horses that are going to look like your horses. You're not seeing Grand Prix horses pretending to do prelim tests. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Now, Jody,
so you have these training scales.
I was wondering, I thought I had
Faith, are you able to mute everyone?
Hard muzzle.
That looks like Jan we're looking at.
Is that true?
Look at Jan. Yes.
It is Jan.
No.
Okay, so you have a size 5. Okay, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I can find Jan and do that. Here we go.
I think I was going to give you my.
There we go. No more Jan. No more Jan. So yeah, we have those training things. I think it's really important to know that dressage as a sport does have entry-level competitions, but I think it's important that you kind of choose those competitions wisely, because you have level 1 or prelim level in your country, like you'll have a low level, but you may also have Olympic riders riding at that level. So depending on what kind of class of show you go to can make a very big difference. So if I go to my local winter dressage series here, it's a non-graded, so it doesn't count for grading points, and there are lots of kind of different sorts of people and odds and sods of shapes and types of horses, and a lot of them are doing, say, a level 1 test. If I go to the New Zealand National Championships, the level 1 test looks very different, because some of the riders in it are actually Olympians and are on mega horses. So that's really important when you go to select a show. You're not just selecting the level that you are entering at, you actually want to select the type of show that has people of your own ability and age and stage, so that you don't feel overwhelmed, because it can be very overwhelming when you see top riders on fantastic young horses doing the low level stuff, and then there's you on your ex-race horse or your youngster that you're doing your breaking it and riding yourself.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. So I'm just mindful that people are going to want to ask you questions, so I might just open it up and let people unmute and and ask some questions.